We're just watching. Yeah.
No, very good, thank you.
Not yet.
Speakers, panelists, please join us at the front. Vanessa Kincaid, there you are. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. Ladies and gentlemen, lots of empty seats left over here. Wow, whoever said that, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How is everybody doing tonight? Very nice to hear. My name is Aaron Cullen. I run the business development and venture divisions of Fuel, one of your event sponsors this evening. Very happy to meet you tonight and talk about some amazing new developments in the Dapp development space. Before that, we have a couple housekeeping measures I've been kindly asked to speak to by our hosts, Littlstar. For starters, if you're looking for the restroom, it's in the hallway down that way somewhere. There is a men's room and a ladies' room. There's a weird code you will have to remember to get into the bathroom, which is written on the door. So,
oh boy, that was my job. Okay.
Finally, I have to give a brief shout out to our drink sponsors of the evening. It would not be a tech event without free booze. And we have both beer from the Nicaragua Beer Company and mixers from Owen's Mixers. So let's give them a shout out. So, get our load on. Awesome. Well, I want to set the tone for tonight with a brief reading from a book I just finished this morning, actually. It's very relevant to the industry that everyone here is now contributing to. If you're at all familiar with Dapp space, crypto, what have you, I think you'll get the vibe. The book is Life After Google. Has anyone heard of it? Read of it? Anybody? No? Paul has? Josh has heard of it? Okay, well, it's written by a man named George Gilder. For about 40 years, he's been called the techno prophet. He predicted Netflix basically in 1990, along with a couple other things. He's also said some other controversial things about women, but we'll avoid those for tonight and just focus on the tech prophecy. Go with me here for a second. I think you may get where this is going. Before you read this book, please submit your username and password. We are concerned with your identity, your cyber safety, and your literary preferences. We want to serve you better. Please also transcribe the tangle of case-sensitive captcha letters in the box to prove that unlike 36% of web requests, you are not a robot that has phished your identity. Sorry, your username and password combo does not match our records. Do you need help? If you wish to change your username, your password, or your security questions, please click on the URL we have supplied in an email to the address you provided when you purchased our software. Sorry, that address is inoperative. Do you wish to change your email address? By the way, iTunes desires to upgrade your software to correct dangerous vulnerabilities. This software patch cannot be installed until you submit your Apple ID and password. Sorry, this combo doesn't match our records either. Do you want to try again? To repeat this procedure, you must first unlock your Mac drive. Please submit your password to decrypt your Macintosh drive. If you have lost your password for your Macintosh drive, you may have to wipe your drive and start over. You will lose all of your contents that you failed to back up, including this book. Let's try again. But first, one more. Google requires you to resubmit your Google password. No, not that Google password. You changed that 2 weeks ago. Yes, we also know that you have several Google passwords linked to various usernames. We also know that you have Apple passwords that are tied to your Gmail address as a username. But in order to assure your privacy and security, we rely on you to know which username and password combination is relevant in any particular situation on any one of your multiple devices. No, that password does not match our records. Do you want to change it? Are you sure you are the actual owner of this book? So, what that has to do with, well, it has to do with a lot of things, but it basically speaks to the power of distributed application technology to eliminate that concept from all of our lives. And we've got 3 amazing products to speak to tonight, different flavors of the crypto world, and hopefully with them and some other stuff going on in other places in the world, you're never going to have to reset a password again. That being said, let's do some brief introductions and then we can dive into the specifics of this evening. I'd like to start off again with myself. I'm Aaron. I work at Fueled. We're a full-service digital agency that specializes in mobile products and more recently Dapp development products. One of the products we've worked on most recently is called Trace. It's an amazing Dapp in the supply chain management space. We have Josh and Paul from Trace here to speak about their product. We also have Laura and Paul from Fueled /Anchor. who've worked with Trace on their project. And then, of course, we also have Vanessa Kincaid here from Littlstar. And,
Woo!
Yeah, thank you. And we also have the CEO of Littlstar here, whose full name is totally escaping me because someone whispered in my ear. Tony, there we go.
Tony.
Let's give Tony a shout out. He's our landlord tonight. So where are we going to go from here? Well, I've read the book. I've talked about the mixers. Next slide, please. I think is where we go from here. Boom, Anchor. So, I'm going to give you a little spiel about Anchor, and then we'll get into the specifics of the demos and so forth. What is Anchor? Anchor is a new sub-brand of Fueled that we're technically launching tonight. No one has ever spoken of it publicly before now. What Anchor is, thank you very much. And what Anchor is a new sub-brand specialty of Fueled dedicated to Dapp development. This is a very long time coming for us. The idea was hatched a little more than a year ago, probably right around the peak of Bitcoin's price, actually. And the idea was, well, this Dapp technology stuff, it looks like it's not going anywhere. People are asking us, clients are asking us, is this something we could leverage to make our business better? And we thought, well, probably is. Then Bitcoin crashed. The crypto space crashed generally. There was a lot of skepticism, and we thought, well, maybe this isn't the golden goose that we thought it was going to be. So we took a step back, we reassessed our priorities, and we said, well, let's do a little experiment. Let's put up a small marketing page that says we can do some Dapp development work and see what happens. Long story short, it was the best performing marketing spend we've ever done, ever, by a factor of like 25 or something like that. We got more leads than on this one little ad than we've ever done ever before. But one thing we very quickly learned is about 90% of them were not legitimate. There were a lot of people in this space looking to do some shady things, and they were looking for anyone with skills that were able to help them do it. So we had to sift through a lot of garbage to find a couple amazing projects, and that's where we are today. What Anchor is dedicated to is leveraging the best of distributed application technology for the good of everybody. We're not interested in helping people do ICOs, ICOs, token offerings, what have you. We want to use this new technology to disintermediate access to everything, let people empower themselves with data, and try to cut out the centralized monsters that are dominating the world today. So that's what Anchor is. I'd say arguably our flagship project of the year is going to be Trace. Guys will speak more to that later. Yeah, that's what Anchor is. So thank you everybody for that. Next slide, please. Boom. Oh, I was supposed to do this while I was speaking all of that, but here's some more great stuff. Supposed to talk about all the work that Fueled has done and so forth. Next slide, please. Yeah, exactly. More of this. Lots of words here. I don't want you to read this. I want you to look at me. Next slide, please. Yeah, exactly. Oh, right. Yeah. So I'm also supposed to mention, I left out probably the most important part. We were one of the earliest investors in Coinbase at Fueled. The other half of my job at Fueled is actually running Fueled Ventures. It's an entity through which we've invested in more than 40 of our startup projects over the past 3 years. Coinbase was one of the earliest deals we ever did. No, you cannot buy our Coinbase shares. I get asked this probably once or twice a week on LinkedIn. They're not for sale. But again, long story short, we've had a very interesting investor update view on the crypto space for a while now. So again, when Bitcoin was at its peak, there was a lot of talk, and long story short, here we are. Next slide, please. Yes, I guess I'm supposed to read this to everybody just to get it off. Yeah, Laura. Yeah, Laura, I'm gonna introduce Laura. She's a senior product manager at Fueled. Yeah, there we go. No, are we?
Yeah, so, Anchor is Fueled's new, child brand, if you will, to focus on decentralized applications. But to that, we bring the Fueled team and the Fueled product strategy, which is deeply rooted in focusing on solving real problems. And for every client that comes to us, they present their idea, and we kind of investigate that to make sure that it solves a real problem. There's a real user base, that there's people who actually want to use this product. We define strong MVPs. We encourage quick iteration and agile methodologies. Our design team is incredible. They design super thoughtful and incredible user experiences. And we work with our back-end team and our front-end teams to come up with the most sensible architectures for our projects. So in that vein, we kind of applied this to what we've done with Anchor, specifically for the Trace product, but for other projects as well. And next slide, maybe. So yeah, we're really excited to partner with Trace as kind of a pilot for the Anchor, brand release. And the work that we're doing, not only are they releasing their guys, but they had a really, really good idea that leverages decentralized, ideologies and technical use cases appropriately. And so we got really excited about that because this is a product that is an emerging market, ripe for redefinition. They had a really, really good and simple and MVP-able idea, which to their chagrin I'm probably going to be pushing back on a lot. But out of that, we've been able to design and develop a successful iOS native user-facing application utilizing blockchain technology with Swift, MongoDB, GraphQL, IPFS, and Ethereum smart contracts. So it's a loaded stack of new technologies that we've been playing around with these guys, and it's been a really, really nice way for Fuel to establish reuse its product methodologies for a completely new emerging market for these guys. Yeah.
Wait, there's more.
Well, I'm Paul. Paul number one, Paul O, lead backend engineer at leading the software projects at Fuel backend and blockchain. So you were doing a bit better, but wait, there's more. We've created solutions for decentralized products that apply smart contracts differently. These projects include tokenizations and off-chain decentralized storage. Next slide, please. So a couple of projects that we've done at Fuel is, one is App Lotto. So this is more of a pitch slide that we got. So I just want to go technically about it. I'm not really good at that part. So App Lotto is a game that is created in Unity that leverages the blockchain in order to give rewards to users that play the game. So it's an ERC20 token. So it uses the ERC20 standard, and that way users are being tracked on how much points they can use in the marketplace in order to, get extra collectibles or, for example, actual money or stuff. In the back end there, they have a system called Sparren. And Sparren is a random number generator that works on a decentralized network. The technicalities is on them, so I do not necessarily know how that works. So that's magic for me still. I've never gotten the information. But yeah, one is App Lotto, and the next one is Lumia. And Lumia is actually a more interesting application of ERC20. Lumia is a NFC-enabled smart fabric company that tracks the usage of clothes, and that data can then be sold back to companies for analytics for that company. That submission of data gives you coins, and that coins can be used in the marketplace and for redeeming deals and coupons. Again, this was an ERC20 standard token, but then it was a native application where the wallet was stored on an Android application. We've used Web3DJ, and I actually forgot to put it in. We also use this decentralized storage, and you can actually store information and not necessarily use an S3 bucket. So for a lot of these applications, you usually have the centralized server, the centralized control of applications. With all the applications that we've created now so far, we obviously have that. There's a lot of struggle with working on the UI and UX of that because you'll have to use all these decentralized solutions. Next one, please. Yeah, so what we're excited about. So yeah, as I said, there are a lot of problems to solve with UI and UX. Currently, as you said, as Aaron said, there's no username and password. It's kind of a problem. How do you solve that somebody doesn't lose your account? That's already like a hard problem to solve. There's also like you have to overcome current blockchain problems and identify creative solutions around that. Specifically around what we've worked on at Trace, we have Ethereum, which is a slow network. If you don't control it, it's incredibly expensive if you don't use it effectively. So we will have to come around working with creative solutions in order to overcome those problems. And building something truly decentralized is still hard. The last two projects that we've shown, especially around Trace, we actually are very happy with the product because in some way we've been able to really go all the way in creating a decentralized application. With other applications, it's still hard because there are still problems around how you keep it decentralized and how can you create a UI and UX and a system around a decentralized application. How can you build trust around network, around nodes in the network? Yeah. Those are hard problems to solve, and we can start solving unique problems for blockchain hybrid decentralized applications.
There we go. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, just about. I mean, I think we could switch places maybe if you guys can come on this side. Not exactly all move that way. So we're going to move into the next section of tonight's presentation. We're going to let Josh and Paul introduce themselves, talk a little about Trace. I'm going to go through this way. Thank you. One more time. So I've known these guys for the better part of a year. Paul is an accomplished mathematician. Josh is an accomplished grower of cannabis. And together, they have conceived what we hope to be the world's preeminent supply chain management system for the legal cannabis industry. Take it away, gentlemen.
How's it going? So, I'll give some background on Trace, just by telling the story of where it came from, because this is a Dapp that came from really specific real-world problems that I noticed while I was growing cannabis, mostly in California, but the problem started to be apparent to me here on the East Coast too, where I was growing medically in Vermont. So I was working for a company that whose primary product was pre-rolled joints that they sold in dispensaries in Northern and Southern California, and quite frequently we wouldn't have enough product on hand to put into those joints to get to the shelves from our own farm. So we had to buy product from our neighbors. And there were all kinds of claims being made by people selling cannabis, like that they were permitted as a cannabis grower, that the strain was that what they said it was when we bought it from them, that it didn't have any pesticides and was grown organically, but in fact it did have pesticides and it wasn't grown organically, or they weren't permitted, or it was Mango Kush instead of Pineapple Express. And I noticed as well that once claims were made by us, they were often changed by people later in the supply chain. So when we dropped off our pre-rolled joints at a dispensary, sometimes people would cross out the THC percentage and write in a higher one so they could boost the price on the product and sell it for more money. So it became really clear to me that reframing these problems as data security problems was a really easy to solve. Because if we had a way to at least know for sure that a data point what came from X grower, at least there was a system of accountability and a way to trace back through the supply chain who was responsible for what information was attached to a product. And if we could build an ecosystem around that where product couldn't move forward in the supply chain unless it had the required information at that stage in the supply chain. We could create hard market incentives that say you can't move this product forward until you've at least attested all these things. And for example, with test facility information, one thing the blockchain allows us to do is to know that those test results actually came from a test facility, and that they didn't come from a cannabis company that has more incentive to lie about those test results. So it's really about removing friction so that we as a company didn't have to spend a month and thousands of dollars retesting product and re-verifying claims made by people before us. That has benefits across the entire supply chain for all cannabis companies. So Trace really, at a fundamental level, is a platform where businesses can make attestations for their product and easily exchange those goods without any friction. And all this ties into a consumer application where consumers can scan product and see a full Trace verified product history, so long that all the people in the supply chain that touch that product are using the Trace system and persisting important data points to the blockchain, so that there is accountability and blowback should anything about the product not be what's claimed by a company. This is Paul. If you go to the next slide, you start to see the different front ends of Trace. And Paul, please go ahead.
Those are about the solution. So, Josh and I have been friends for a long time, and we were talking about philosophy and decentralization and, all the ways that the powers that be are sort of screwing us over right now. And he also has this special knowledge in the cannabis industry, and I come from sort of quantitative finance, machine learning, and cryptography, and applied math in general. And we sort of struck this idea sort of organically a while back. And so the solution to this problem of data that has a provenance that's not necessarily trustworthy, how do you know where your data came from? How do we prove that? How do we prove, well, really, who it came from is the most important thing, right? Because anyone can enter inaccurate data. The most important thing is that if someone does that, they're held accountable, and then the market forces, hold them to be honest in the future. So, what we really wanted is a product, a data infrastructure that is completely immutable and that you have 100% certainty. Because if you have 90% certainty, then people will start to leverage that gray area. Then your mutual trust, you're saying, it's like, I don't know if I can trust you, and that person doesn't know if they can trust me. So, you can't have an efficient relationship in a marketplace that way. Trust is really the foundation of all efficient marketplaces. So, and then the other component is decentralization. So one way to solve the trust issue is to just have a monolithic industry where you have vertically integrated operations, and of course, as long as they can trust their own employees, then there's trust. But that's not what the cannabis market actually looks like, as Josh explained to me. And we are both from Vermont. It's a small state. There's lots of small farmers. So we want a system where lots of growers can interact with lots of extractors who are buying their product and test their products in a test facility and co-brand their product, all without needing to be part of the same monolithic entity. So that's what that says.
So each one of these represent a role in the Trace ecosystem, and the allowances of those roles correspond to permits that represent those roles. So those permits are real legal things that you apply for as a cannabis business with a state government. And what that permit allows you to do per the letter of the law is what your role is allowed to do in the Trace system. So that's sort of another layer of verifiability that the blockchain allows us, and that setting rules around these products allow us, is that if I'm a cannabis business operator, I can default trust someone in the Trace platform that they are permitted and that they aren't breaking, going outside the bounds of what their permit allows. So that's what you're seeing in here with all these roles, and what's behind them is a specific legal permit that gives them permission to grow, extract, test, or distribute cannabis.
Oh, yeah, no, that's very true. I think we have a few different consumers of this kind of data. The main one being the businesses themselves. It is a B2B app, that's where we're getting our revenue, which, by the way, is very different from other seed to sale tracking platforms out there. They're getting most of their revenue from the government, and they're making these big deals for millions of dollars, and they do that in each state, but the businesses hate them, and they are not helping them, they're hurting them. There's a lot of burdensome data entry that's irrelevant to market pricing. So the businesses are our first consumers, and then of course the consumers are the businesses' consumers. So we want to help the businesses find them and differentiate their product. And then we want to make a compliant marketplace for the government regulators who are sort of the tertiary consumers. That covers all, I guess it covers all that. Yeah. Data is important and valuable, and yeah, we can probably go on something. Yeah, well, okay, so what this is saying is the blockchain is immutable. There's no way to alter the history of the blockchain. That's the whole point, is that there's tens of thousands of people verifying that history all the time. Easily track inventory is part of that. This is really showing the fact that our certifications of products. If we have a product that's, a data product that we're selling to people, we can integrate with other front ends, that product is the check mark, right? And analytics is really the long-term vision.
Let's do questions in between each session here. No, what do you mean it's not okay? Well, we're not ending the event. I just want guys, you got questions in your mind for Trace. Who has a question in their mind for Trace right now? Right here, gentlemen.
Are you able to white label your platform, so let's say like USD or cannabis?
So the question is, are you willing to white label the platform?
There are definitely implications in what we're building for other industries and other supply chains, but we're really focused on cannabis right now because something like this doesn't exist in cannabis, and there's no source of truth that exists in the market already. So we aren't trying to replace an organic certification or upend an existing power structure. It's just no one really knows what's going on, and everyone needs answers in the cannabis market for how to solve these problems, and there's not anything that exists yet to do it. So we're hoping to prove its efficacy in the cannabis market, and then we'll talk about that a little later on.
Any more questions for Trace right here?
Yeah, can you just lead us through blockchain and like from sales and users to repeat question?
So the question is, walking through the technicals, that's a big question, but I could walk through the blockchain, the technicals of the blockchain itself. So there's a lot of different ways one might describe this. I think in this crowd, probably the best way to explain it is sort of the literal definition, which is that it's a decentralized peer-to-peer network. So it's basically a computer, but it's everywhere. It's.
So you know, you're building on like Ethereum, like
Oh.
sort of contracts there.
Oh, sorry.
Is it like
So we're not doing any sort of token. There's no ERC20, not even an ERC720. So there's no token. It's just using Ethereum. It's using a coin to make the decision between a token and a coin, right? We're not using a token. We are using the Ethereum currency in order to process transactions. And so what's unique about our application is that we actually don't have very many transactions per day even. So there's a very rare opportunity to actually run our platform on the mainnet without incurring very high costs.
So are you housing information in metadata and each transaction?
The question was, are we housing the data in the metadata of the transaction, like in the logs?
Yeah, the permit and the quality and all the information related to it.
No, so it's being stored in IPFS. So what we store is a content addressable hash that's stored in the contract, and so the storage is in IPFS, and then the logic of who is able to update this information is controlled by a smart contract in terms of who is able to update that hash.
That part of it is going to be as housed as centralized.
no, it's on IPFS. It stands for Interplanetary File System. Pretty much as decentralized as it gets. And we could swap that out for another technology in the future, but the main components are that it's content addressable. So there's no file paths. It doesn't matter where the file is. You reference the file by its actual content. So it's immutable. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. Good question.
Yeah, well, that's the way to do this.
I haven't. What do you call it?
Next question.
Yeah. Decentralized asset modeling language.
I haven't looked into that.
It's used for finance, and it has interesting applications for this.
Like the internet except
One more question for Drake.
Just came out last week.
Literally last week.
Yeah.
No.
Sure, Paul.
Do you think this could be applicable, like let's say the CBD space, in terms of verifying like whether it's a legitimate product or synthesized chemically?
Yeah. So the question is if it could be applied to the hemp or CBD market. And yes, we're in testing with hemp and CBD companies in Vermont right now, which is turning into a mecca for hemp and CBD growing. It has the most favorable grow laws in the country. Just a little Vermont plug. We start a hemp and CBD farm right now, and its business is booming. But I think it's the exact same supply chain for hemp and CBD. It's the exact same roles. It's just less regulated. So we're doing a lot of product testing in that environment in Vermont, where the stakes are a little lower. I don't know. There's other little unique things about the hemp and CBD supply chain, but for the most part, it's the exact same process as cannabis.
Thank you very much, Trace.
Who am I? Tony. Vanessa? Who wants to speak first? I'm handing it off.
Hi, I'm Vanessa from Littlstar in Love you. Thank you guys for coming. This is our office / event space. And Tony is our CEO. So Littlstar is a media technology company that's been building immersive technologies for the last 4 years. So we have consumer applications on all of the major headsets, phones, TVs, where you can watch 360 VR, AR experiences. And for the past year and a half, we've been working on a project called Aura, which I'll let Tony get into the details of a little bit more, but was essentially taking the kind of breadth of knowledge from Tony, who comes from an engineering background, our amazing engineering team, our CTO, Joe, who has been building media tech for a number of years. shout out to Joe. And trying to use some of this new technology to find an elegant solution to problems that we've been seeing in the media industry for the last decade, in terms of creators not being represented well, not being paid for the work that they're doing, consumers getting their data kind of involuntarily taken from them and sold as if they were a product, and we just think that there's a much better way that whole industry can be run and how things can happen using P2P distributed delivery networks and the blockchain for a licensed worker. So I'll pass over to you right now. Talk a little bit more about
Yeah, sure. I usually do my talks from the positron chair because I'm more comfortable right now, but this will do it, I think. I mean, Vanessa, I think, gave a pretty good intro of what we're doing. A lot of us have backgrounds in media for years. A lot of us were creators ourselves, putting records out, putting video out, working on films. And so, we were building a centralized network for immersive content and very traditional, basically Netflix for immersive content, working with all the major movie studios and broadcasters and Disney, Fox, NBCU, Hearst, Gannett, Warner Music Group, Warner's an investor in us, Sony's an investor in us. And so, it was a real kind of epiphany that we had going into the end of last year. A bunch of us have been playing around with, I started mining Bitcoin in 2012, mostly from like an engineering. I was never for an investment purpose. It was just like, this is cool tech, and I read the white paper, and like, let's play around with it. And so, like, we always kind of had that a little bit of, P2P in our veins, and Joe worked on a bunch of peer-to-peer tech when he was at Spotify, and so that all came together in last year, this light bulb moment that the ownership ledger should be decentralized instead of a username and password where you log in and prove your ownership over content. And so right now we're being leased our content. Everybody is being leased their content. You used to buy your content. You used to buy a CD. You used to buy a DVD and have it in your home. And you had those CD walls that everybody had, 1,000 CDs in there. It felt good. Just have a party at your house and then show up a sheet.
I couldn't believe that.
Like, look at my Netflix account. It's so cool, right? So, we saw an opportunity to, same thing with what Bitcoin has done with banks. We see in the media business, and if you look at like what's happening in media, there's abuse all over the place. And not only do you not own your content, but your data is being abused. At any moment, if you have a voice that doesn't agree with any of the platforms, they will silence you. Like, it's the truth. And so, how do you get around that? You build a participatory, decentralized network in the media space, which is arguably as influential as money. It is. Like, it just, if you control the media, then you control where the money flows. And so it's a big thing that we're going after. And the way we see it is, we're not a Dapp. We're not trying to be a single app sitting on top of Ethereum. We're building tier 1 technology that is peer-to-peer from a content delivery perspective, an identity perspective, and an ownership perspective. It's blockchain agnostic. And we might be using Ethereum right now, but everything is written in an abstracted way so that it can work across chains. It can work in an enterprise context. It can work in a public context. So that's essentially like where we're coming from a media perspective, and that we were actually having a conversation earlier about what this means for advertising. If you look at Coca-Cola puts $1 million towards a media buy digitally, and that what happens between I made that buy and the consumer's eyeballs, there's like ad fraud between 100 different companies along the way, and there should be an audit trail of who's doing that. And if I'm doing a media buy and I'm paying for someone's attention, I'm Coca-Cola, I should be paying for your attention directly. So like, I should be, that's mining as far as I'm concerned. Like, you're watching an ad, you should be getting paid for it. So, there's so many things in media that, from control to message to fraud to, it just goes on and on. And so, we started out as immersive, VR and AR, because we were trying to think outside the box with traditional media. And then, all of this stuff, like a couple of our, shout out to Charlie and Eric, who built a reward system on Ethereum at a hackathon that we had internally, and it turned into, okay, this is the future, and there's no turning back. So, I think we have some slides, but, I'm just up here talking.
We could probably go through these pretty quickly. These are some of the companies that we've worked with. Some of them either distributing their content. Some of them are also investors. We power 160 different apps across 100 million devices using our technology. If you go to the next slide, I think it goes into Aura. Yeah.
Just design that, by the way.
Oh, we have both a killer engineering and design team, so shout out to both of them for the whole product. But yeah, if you go to the next slide, this kind of just talks a little bit about where the media industry is about using decentralized technology to shift some of that power within the media industry from both like owning the content and the data. And then the next slides, which I think, do you want to walk
You
through
don't
the
need-
video?
you don't
Yeah, we're going to do this.
I don't figure the thing about the previous slide though that
We got him here in person, everyone.
I don't know if it's, usually when we do all hands, I just talk loud. So I can do it in a mic too, but whatever. On the previous slide, our revenue shares are 90-10. So for the creators get 90% of the revenue, and the other 10% is split up as mining rewards to the peers who are supporting the network. So think about a BitTorrent network. If you were hosting, you stole Star Wars and then you were hosting it, you would steal Star Wars and then you would immediately delete it because you didn't want to be hosting and delivering stolen content or using your hard drive space and your bandwidth, and then everybody's calling you and knocking on your door. We basically are saying you have licensed content on your machine and you're hosting it intentionally, and your neighbor comes and buys it. That $10 purchase price for the movie, the dollar is getting split off and rewarded to all the people who are hosting and delivering content. So you're delivering licensed content and getting paid to do it. So, we look back at, that slide that was up there previously, and if you think about that, I was just out at Blockchain Week on a panel with Justin Blau. He's got 1.2 million followers on Spotify, international touring artist. He put out an album, $300,000 in sales. It was a single, $300,000 in sales. He got $12,000 from that as the artist. Fucked up. Like, that's not good, like he should have gotten $250,000 of that. And then the other $50,000 of that should have gone to the Justin Blau fans that are hosting that content and delivering content. Nobody's in the middle of that. Nobody's mining anybody's data. No, there's like nobody taking pieces of it all in between there. The labels get out of it. Justin just publishes it, and he's getting paid way more. Even if he sells less on the blockchain, because you have to educate people. Even if he sells less, he's getting paid way more than that $12,000. So anyway, back to V.
No. Just I think the slides. Our director of technical partnerships was going to present this, but he's sick, so Tony and I are winging it.
We're doing great.
Yeah. But I think that the slides go into a little bit about how the system actually works and some of a little bit more of the technical details. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. On why the system is different. So essentially, a creator can publish content into the system. There is a smart contract that they can set the terms around how they want to distribute that content, and then publish that directly to the consumers. Every person who purchases that piece of content, there's a license that then goes into the blockchain showing they have made that purchase. We call it like proof of ownership. And the payment happens directly between the creator and the consumer, and the content is delivered from all the peers in the network that are hosting that, and that's where the mining rewards go back to them. So in kind of the most simple terms, that's the way that the system works. If you go to the next slide. I don't know if do you want to talk about fundraising or you want to...
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about this. The CDN is all peer-to-peer. User identity, I think, is a big deal in that, like, right now we've gotten okay getting free content, and basically our data is getting used and getting breached and or sold to Cambridge Analytica or whatever it is. And so, it's starting to affect people, I think, generally. There's been, oh, well, breach happened, and I'm okay with it. And then another one happens, and I'm like, and then the third one happens, and you're like, okay, now we're starting to see a problem. And so the identity is a big deal, and, the ownership piece of it is, maybe the way to think about it is if you were buying things on iTunes or you were consuming content through Spotify or, on Netflix or something, and one of those companies goes away, they're removing your access to that entire library. And what we're trying to do with this is that if I'm a movie studio or a game, publisher, and I put something in the license into the blockchain and it's moving around the peer network, then every, a million people buy that piece of content. There's no organization that owns that ledger of ownership. So if iTunes were to go away today, you would lose the proof that you purchased all of that content, and it would be orphaned. And you might be able to hang on to it on some devices, but it would be gone. And same thing, like if Spotify goes away, your whole library is just gone. You don't own that music anyway. So they got everybody over a barrel on that one. And so what we're doing is basically saying, like with the ledger, everybody has a copy of everything that you've ever purchased, and they don't know who you are. They just see a hash, and you can prove that you own it because you have your private keys, and that's it.
Question?
Yes, yes, it is.
So this part is what fascinates me the most. For Netflix to work, just by example, the centralized version of what you're talking about, they pay through the nose for peering agreements to get the last mile. How do you overcome the last mile distribution problem? How do you get Comcast, Fios, whoever owns the pipe in my house to participate?
I mean, it's a blend of things, right? Like essentially we have a deposit, it's not a stake, so you can become a peer in the network. And we have a hybrid approach where we'll be seeding the network with supernodes day one, which are huge amounts of storage, huge amounts of bandwidth, and high availability day one across the globe. So lots of points of presence. But it's not a requirement that we own that. We're just doing that to seed the network. Over time, Netflix could run their own super peer, and Disney could run their own supernodes. And so there's still the infrastructure that's available and highly available that's there, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not a requirement that it's owned by a single centralized organization. And so what the great thing about what Spotify was doing is they had a blend, right? Like when they were using, they've since dialed it back, but when they were using peer-to-peer technology, it was using edge compute in individuals' machines with a desktop app that had Spotify that would improve the performance at the edges and save them money. So if my neighbor wanted to listen to Drake and I had it on my machine already, it would just pull it from my computer and it makes it easier. So it's going to be a hybrid solution, and we see big mining operations will have huge peers that are hosting huge amounts of highly available content, massive pipes. And then there's going to be a bunch of people who have my machine sitting at home not doing anything right now. I should be getting something off of that. So if I can open up a little bit of that bandwidth and improve the performance at the edges, then great, I'll do it. Spotify was doing that with MP3s. Even in this space, we're doing it in 4K video or 60 gigabyte files, that kind of range.
Do you need something like net neutrality to make sure that this works?
We're playing, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Where's my pitchfork? We're Joe's part of the Mesh Network, in New York. We're already starting to play around with that. We know there's a lot of movement in the blockchain space on managing mesh networks. So, I think there's a blend of what's happening from a content delivery perspective, and then also having device peers not even talking to the internet is a potential solution. Not saying it's happening tomorrow. We all know that. Yeah. All right, B.
Yeah, we kind of talked about some of this stuff already. I think one thing on this slide that's been a really big thing is that the platform can support literally any type of digital asset. So the way that we're thinking about it initially is that games and large video, there's a huge industry for that, but when you think of this at scale, it can be photos, files, immersive content, software updates, any blob of data essentially that you're moving around the internet could be moved around in a peer-to-peer fashion. I think this is a lot of stuff that we've talked about already. Same with this. This is actually just a screenshot of a little kind of proof of concept application that we built that is already working on testnet, where you can essentially publish a file into it. It generates like a license in the blockchain, goes through the whole process, creates a peer, and you can send a link that you could post on Twitter or send through Slack or whatever to a friend, and they can purchase and download the piece of content all through the network. So it's we've built it internally as like a test case. We've been using it as a demo with a lot of our partners, and also it's just kind of like an example, a very, very simple kind of example of how you can use some of the tech that we've built in like a real world way. So the Justin Blau application is like a perfect example. He could come on, put his new single in the system, get that little URL, and like post it out on his socials or all of his fans to like purchase it, and he then gets 90% of all the sales from that. Yeah, I think that Mark and Isabel have a demo ready to go of the application that we could quickly show.
This is the first time that anybody outside the office is seeing this, by the way, and unlike most blockchain companies, we actually have some shit that like works.
No, true. This is the first like public demo we have.
You want me to turn off the YouTube stream?
Oh yeah. No, it's totally fine.
This is pretty much like a Burning Man, but keep your shit.
Ever. Yeah.
The only like yeah.
Yes, I'm Mark. And there's two teams here at Littlstar. There's the Box team, which is building a bunch of really cool open source modules for the R network that anybody can build on top of. And then there's the Labs team, which is a part of. And we're building consumer and experimental products on top of our network. So really implementing it in a really consumer-friendly, non-technical manner.
So yeah, we built this desktop app here, and it's a consumer-facing app that allows you to publish and then share your published file across the network. And through this application, you can also become a seeder in the network, which means you get paid to transfer not only your file, but anybody's file that you own across the network, as long as it's on your computer. So yeah, we're just gonna demo how this works. Just bear with us. We're on our own blockchain network here. It's a little slow. We have one miner, so we'll get a little bit of fire, but work through it. So yeah, here's the publish file screen. We can set the file name, the price, and of course the file itself.
So we all missed that video of Tony. We will see it. And it's a good video, so let's charge a bit.
$1 million.
So there's a couple of contracts, rights to the smart contracts that happen during this publication process. The first is actually creating what's called the AFS contract out on the Ethereum blockchain. And the second is writing the metadata to it, which proves your ownership. And that's built on top of the Dapp protocol, which is a really cool new peer-to-peer distributed file system, kind of like IPFS, but it allows for versioning. There's a few more functions built into it as well.
This app is also, we're essentially building it as a template, and it'll be on GitHub, and anybody could, so like think about like EA and Fortnite, right? Like or Blizzard with Diablo and Overwatch, like they all have their own publishers like this, and you download their app, and when they publish something, you get it on your desktop app. So that's what we're thinking here. There's an opportunity that like everybody can become a self-publisher and have their own app, and then you can even have aggregators of those assets, almost like what Binance does, matching buyers and sellers of like for cryptocurrencies. Similar fashion.
Yeah, and right now it's actually publishing it. It's writing the metadata, and once it's set, what's going to be available to us is what we're calling a deep link. And it's a special link that will allow you, when you click it, it will open this file manager app up directly, right in the app. So you can paste it on your Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And no matter where you click it, it's going to pop open this app and prompt you to purchase it.
So I noticed that publishing it costs you $5, correct?
Right. So every transaction in Ethereum is going to cost a little bit. And depending what the network congestion is at the time, it can go up or down. Should never be anything extraordinary. So there's a small cost incurred with any publishing and purchasing as well.
What is our business model in terms of how are you getting paid? Developers going to the content creators and the content
Oh wait, we're supposed to make money? Yeah, so there's a couple things. Okay, so he was asking how do we get paid ultimately, and the idea with a decentralized network and protocol level tech is that we kind of don't get paid in a way that like we're a centralized organization, we're making lots of money on like capitalizing on that at the protocol level. We will run our own super nodes basically, which would mean that like we're hosting every piece of content that would be available, whether it's games or movies or TV, and then anybody purchasing those, we would take a reward, a share of the mining rewards. There's an additional layer to that. So Aura is a subsidiary of Littlstar. Littlstar has a lot of deals with like all the big movie studios, and they need hand-holding through this, and we know that. And it's just like you can't call Bitcoin right now. That's why since there's been a lot of struggle, it's a very community-driven effort, and I think Ethereum has had a little bit better of an opportunity in that they have like a consensus or different organizations that are actually pushing those things forward. We see this as the same thing that's necessary in the media business as well. You walk into NBC Universal and they have a compliance department with a 25-page security agreement, and they come on site and they audit you, and you have insurance, and you get hacked, and they're coming after you. Like, they need somebody to talk to. They just need somebody to email, and that's really expensive.
So you're right back.
Right. Yeah, here's free software. We'll help you with it.
That's really that's because and I actually have read the white paper, so I know a little bit of it.
Awesome.
No, the reason that this is good is because most decentralized companies are actually kind of re-centralizing around themselves.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
yeah. So that was really good.
Yeah, the protocol should be open and everybody should be able to use them, but then the fact that we know how to use them and call full, there's some stuff we can do there, and then we can also use resources to support peers in the network and get financing.
And on the Littlstar side, like the team that Mark and Isabel work on are like actively building different tools on top of protocol that make it easier for developers, creators, consumers to be able to like access some of this technology. So we've had a number of conversations where we've like ideated SDKs or tools we could sell to get people to market faster.
For payout splits, how are those rules initially set? How are they enforced? And does anyone have the right to edit or alter those? And if so, who?
Charlie.
We have a couple engineers in the house, okay? Plankton.
Could you use the mic? Could you use the mic? Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was basically how are the royalty payouts set? And essentially what happens is the royalties are actually set when the person initially publishes the AFS. And the only person that can actually change those rules is the person who actually published the content. So no one can touch them, and those payouts are basically paid out every time a purchase goes through on that AFS, that piece of content. Yeah. So no one can tamper with it.
Even if like ARA owns all the super nodes at like the protocol level, like there's no opportunity for it to change.
No, I mean, the only time it would change is if I, as a content creator, publish my file, and I say I want to change the actual royalties. Anytime that changes, then that'll be affected everywhere. So everyone purchasing that content will then get the new royalties.
The peers can't affect that.
Yeah.
Add on to that. Because we didn't fully talk about that, but for the way that like creators get paid today, that's like a really big part of the system where you can actually define kind of like complex revenue splits that all happen immediately at the time of transaction. So like, for example, Justin Blau, who Tony was on the panel with, like he said on the panel, he's like, I had to call them like 4 times, like begging them to send me my check like 6 months after the single release. Which Spotify, yeah.
Paper check.
Yeah. And so in this system, like every single time a consumer buys that album, like his wallet gets, you know, a little bit more. And if he's defined, you know, that like his producer and the band and whatever get like this percentage of it, like that revenue split happens immediately, like every single time. So, which is pretty standard of like a smart contracting, but if there's anyone here that like didn't fully understand how that would work, like that's how it applies for us in the media industry.
Is your metadata?
All right, so Isabel, I just got this awesome distribution link from Mark. So this could basically be a link that any content creator shares on their Facebook, Twitter, and anyone with the app can just click buy now. I have 384 ARA, so I can spend 50 to buy this awesome ARA video and show it to you guys. And now we're gonna wait for agonizing long time, not agonizing long, just a while for the transaction to go through. And then after that, I'm going to use DCDN, which is the Decentralized Content Delivery Network, to connect to Mark's computer and then get that file from him. And then
It's not very technical, but about the naming of ARA, what is the significance? Oh boy.
Question we've been waiting for.
Wait. Just kidding, I hate
all right, so now that we purchased it and then we downloaded this, we could open this. And there it is.
Hold that frame right
Yeah, so I got paid obviously for video, but since I was also here in the network, I got some ARA as well. So we could just passive income.
Your money. Your money. That's it.
Woo! Went up a little bit.
Yeah. That's like $700,000. You gotta be careful.
I got a million.
We're ready to move on to questions.
Yeah, well, I was gonna answer.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
If we wanna open it up to.
Yeah.
So ARA is a constellation which kind of fits nicely with the parent company, Littlstar, and the astronomical concept of that. But ARA is a constellation that represents the altar that Zeus and all the gods went to when they vowed to take down the Titans. And so we felt like there was like a very kind of
One-on-one.
Yeah. to kind of like our mission in some of these like, you know, big centralized.
Fuck the men.
Passive aggressive, you know.
Yeah. So that's the meaning behind ARA and kind of why we felt like it was appropriate. It's also, Tony has like a whole criteria with naming where it has to be less than 3 syllables, it has to be really easy to say, and even with the 3-letter ticker symbol ARA, and it can be the name of the company. So it checked all the conceptual and like logistical boxes.
And I is also on the Milky Way, and it's a constellation too. Yeah.
Any other questions for anybody really? We can open this up. In fact, we gotta move to a general Q&A. Anything about ARA, anything about Trace, anything about blockchain technically? Sorry, light is math, I didn't see you there. What is your question, sir? And for whom?
Question for ARA
Yep.
about, I saw this ad today in the elevator where AWS was bragging about all the hosting services that they do. And I was just wondering how you guys were thinking about how this could take away from some of that revenue or shift that business model.
Yeah.
So the question has to do with how are you going to beat AWS?
They already lost as far as I mean, it's obviously going to be one of those things where, you know, we talk about this all the time internally, like blockchain, everybody's talking about blockchain, and it's like the internet when it came out, and it's like cloud when it came out. I think blockchain is kind of the next evolution of that. And you know, you see the cloud providers like Azure and AWS, they're like, hey, we have a blockchain solution too, but like it goes fundamentally against the principle of a single organization owning and centralizing all of that through their ecosystem. And so they're ultimately going to have a really hard time participating in this because it destroys that model. And so like we're distributing compute, we're distributing storage, we're distributing bandwidth, and people can rent out all of their unused everything like Airbnb. So, you know, it'll take some time. There's a lot of education that has to happen. You know, Azure came out with its numbers the other day and it was like, you know, their Q1 results and it was like $8 billion for their cloud services. And it took that long. It took, if you think about the internet and its birth to get to this point to have an infrastructure service be worth, you know, almost $10 billion. There's going to be some time where it's going to take the chip away from that. But I think the movement is genuinely happening. This isn't a thing anymore where it's like, you know, a bunch of like, you know, research engineers at a few universities who are coming up with some things. There's a real movement that's happening, and you know, they can add supported blockchain technologies to help people, you know, launch enterprise blockchains and things like that. But if you talk about like the real spirit of the crypto space, it's to take power away from those companies. So yeah. So I think I think you know, ultimately it'll take some time. It might be 10 years, but their model is going to get destroyed.
The real answer to your question is actually exactly what this book is about. The thesis of this. I've got a question for you, and actually for both of you. It's sort of generalized, and it basically relates to what's your biggest fear as you roll this out? What are you afraid will happen that will make it harder for you?
I mean, adoption.
Regulation.
Yeah. Regulation in the U.S., like people muddying the waters. You know, that's a hindrance to adoption. I think we spend a lot of our time educating people, and you know, our whole thing. I mean, we talk to Vanessa from the consumer side and brand side, and we think about this all the time. Like, consumers almost shouldn't even know that blockchain is a part of the equation. You know, they should just be able to come and interact with the thing, and it's just better. And creators should be able to come and interact with the thing, and it's just better. You know, like, they shouldn't have to know about blockchain and how it works, and have to know how to deal with private keys, and know how to, like, so that's like, my biggest fear is that all of these dApps are gonna come out and make it really overly complicated for people to actually engage with this stuff. And everybody's gonna say, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it. And then the bottom will fall out of the market and everybody will get nervous. And so, you know,
I don't think that's gonna happen, but it's like we're super bullish on it, but it's also like one of those things that we have to be mindful of in terms of like looking at all the points of interest for adoption and addressing those, whether it's from a regulatory perspective or like educating consumers, or even abstracting things away from consumers so they never even have to know that blockchain is running. Yeah.
Now for Josh and Paul, same question, your biggest fear? Not that Jeff Sessions is going to come and arrest you.
Yeah, well, that is one still for a little bit. Yeah, I mean, adoption definitely for us too. I mean, we depend on people buying into some kind of a vision for a different way for the cannabis industry to come into existence. One of our biggest expenses is lobbying. We're involved in conversations at the state government level across the country, soon to be across the country, right now just in Vermont. And we're going toe-to-toe with private prisons and pharmaceutical companies who want to centralize the cannabis industry and who have economic interest in creating vertically integrated companies with no accountability to the people buying their products. I don't want that to happen, just personally, because I've seen what the light and on this issue, and obviously cannabis prohibition was a huge mistake for a long, long time, and it's caused a lot of pain and suffering on communities of people that was totally unjustified and done for the wrong reasons. So hopefully we can set up a system where small organic and everyday people who in reality make up the bulk of the underground market will be able to participate in a way where they aren't forced out of the market because they can't raise Wall Street money, but they can grow high quality products, they can enter them into the marketplace, they can be incentivized for being honest, and a new type of market can be built, because the reality is other consumer goods markets, in contrast to how cannabis could be if Trace is implemented, are very centralized, are influenced by financial power as much or more than actual the power of goods and the work people do. So hopefully we can set a new paradigm for how markets operate broadly.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, I think my concern is that we don't do this fast enough, and that really bad things happen in the world because of the insane level of centralization that's happening. I mean, there's a lot of different words for it. Income inequality, the United States. I really think if we don't decentralize power very soon, we're very screwed. And in order to do that, we need to poke a hole in the data bubble, because the power that these, why is Facebook worth $70 billion? It's not because they have better algorithms or better front ends. It's because they have your data. So if they're, the only barrier to getting that to happen, the action potential of getting from where we are to a decentralized world, is getting the data out of their hands. So I don't know how to do that without causing harm, other than a gradual thing, but I'm sure it's not fast enough.
Let me build on that theme a little bit, kick it back over here. One more question, I think we have one more time. I'm very good at playing devil's advocate. Anyone who knows me knows probably the first thing on my resume is professional skeptic. Exactly. So if I imagine your product is successful at scale, and it disrupts a vertically integrated media conglomerate who sells me my home internet connection, who sells me my cable box, who sells me my CBS All Access plan, whatever. My internet price just goes up, right? My cable bill goes up. My internet access goes from $39 to $49 to $99 to $199 to $399 a month, because they need to pay bills and they were paying it this other way before, and Now you're taking 90% of it and giving it to Justin Bieber or whatever. So, am I wrong? How does your product work and I not pay $1,000 a month for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the natural progression, which you can already see is happening, is a response to net neutrality, which is mesh networking. And that's, that's happening, and it's same thing, the blockchain stuff is so timely in that, like, it does this with banks, it does this with telcos, it does this with media companies, and it's a natural progression in all these different areas of, like, we don't need you to process the transaction or move this content around, or, I'm just opening up my Wi-Fi with a patch to it on the hardware now in the mesh network. And there's multiple blockchains. I mean, the New York mesh operates without any blockchain already, and there's multiple companies that are now getting into the space to solve that problem, adding a blockchain layer as well. So, I feel like all of these things are definitely going to take time, but the companies that have squeezed and juiced the internet and squeezed all of this power and and are holding on all of this now, they're getting torn down, and there's no way to stop it at this point. Like, it's snowballing, it's getting bigger, and so we're super positive on it. That's not to say they won't be abusive. They have $100 billion, and they're going to defend that.
Right.
But we'll do a token sale and start a new telco. Because you can do that. Right?
I was also just going to say, like, at least on the consumer side, we talk about this a lot, and I think that's why, like, education and events like this are so, like, important to us, because, like, a lot of consumers don't fully understand how their data is being stolen. They don't understand how these systems work, and they don't necessarily, like, need to, but, like, there is, like, an educational gap on, like, why using some of these, like, better solutions that, companies all around the world are, like, working on, is really truly beneficial for them, because, like, convenience in products, which is what, like, multi-billion-dollar multinational companies can sometimes provide you, like, can seem very enticing, but, like, once you start to understand, like, what they're doing with that, we believe that, like, there's an opportunity to build a better product. And if you have all the consumers and creators doing that, then, like, Comcast has to figure out a different business model.
You just need a Taylor Swift to say, this is where it's at, and you don't get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's what you did with Spotify.
That's got Taylor on text.
Right.
Anyone have Taylor on text? All right, I think we're about coming to the close of our presentation tonight. I think if anyone has one or two more questions, we could probably fit that in. Anybody? Anybody else? All the way in the back there.
For our, the project that you're working on to basically, take on mass media, what would you say is the biggest legal hurdle you face, like with like new technology and then also the licenses, and then taking on those sort of giants and then dealing with telcos as well?
So the lawyer in the room would like to know what the legal implications of your
But like
law.
the biggest one that you see, like you have to like really
rights management, all that stuff.
I think there's like a number of legal implications here. I mean, you're dealing with an organization that has robust paper contracts to deal with how they distribute content, and so we need to move that into a smart contract-driven world, so that we think about like, all right, so Star Wars comes out in every country in the world. It's all these different languages. It's theatrical. It's in-home. It's DVDs. It's everything. There's accounting departments that are tracking all of that. There's legal departments that are tracking all the agreements from country to country. If those are all smart contracts and all chaos can happen immediately, and the contracts can't get lost there. So it actually makes. I was looking at Spotify's public filing data for Q2 2018, and they're largely their accounting and finance department is, or accounting and legal department is like, it's under G&A, which is $350 million a year, roughly. And if you think about the legal and the accounting perspective, the bottom line, if you remove all of that from the equation, even say it's half of the G&A budget, that's over $100 million that they're adding on to people that they don't have to employ to track everything that's tracked in smart contracts. So, I mean, I feel like from a legal perspective, there's you know, a big win there in that it cuts out overhead. Then there's also like the, you know, is DRM a thing, and does it need to be a thing? There's a big movement kind of against that right now, and you know, as people try to add DRM, it's kind of like a slippery slope. There's people can figure out a way around it. So like, just provide a better model for distribution and consumption, and people won't steal your shit. So you know, like I feel like there are a bunch of companies that like A&E is one of our partners, and they basically don't use DRM on anything except for a couple legacy like film deals that they have. And yeah, so I mean, it's just like a losing battle. And
The
so
system does support
you can use DRM. It's like, yeah, so the lawyer, you can feel a little bit more comfortable.
No, I just like DRM.
So we don't care, it's just a lot of data to us. So if the content owner wants to put DRM in before they package it up in there, they can totally do that. Then their rendering library has to know how to unlock DRM on the other side. So we don't ultimately care. We're not stopping people from doing that. The system is designed and they want to be open first. So is there any other like legal stuff that you were thinking in that regard?
No, just like from your perspective, like launching this product, like because you're just gonna run into like, you know, so many entrenched systems, like day in, day out, what are you like most concerned about like how do you overcome this, how do you deal with it, or manage it, or incorporate it, or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, there's two parallel tracks. Our approach has to be indie first, because those are smart people, they're very forward thinking, and they're not entrenched in a 20-year career, and they're protecting their revenue streams. A big media company that's like, you know, these old legal agreements, they're not losing their job over that. So it's like all these indie game studios, indie producers who are launching on, you know, they're launching their careers on YouTube and self-publishing. Like that's the demo, and they don't care about it. They have global license, and they want bigger revenue shares, and they have a better connection with their audience directly. They don't need to go through these, you know, organizations that they can just, you know, I'm an artist and I'm gonna go through a big record label now just to hope you get some distribution. Like that shit's over. Sorry, I got
Thank you very much, Tony and Vanessa. So I think that just about does it. I just got a very encouraging text message that my Xbox has finished downloading from one central location, Red Dead Redemption 2. So that's what I'll be playing when I get home. Well, actually, no, I have to wait till midnight apparently, because they won't let me play it until they have DRM based on the date on that. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming tonight. If you did not check in on the little iPad, which I think is now over there, actually, maybe we'll put it back by the door. Please be sure to put your contact info in there, name, email address. Anyone who signed up through that tonight will get an email with everyone else's contact information on it, so that you can network and find anyone interesting that you connected with here. We won't spam you. Other than that, thank you very much for coming. We have plenty more Nicaraguan beer to drink, so.
It's in the kitchen now.
Oh yeah, it's over there now. So by all means, have a good time for the next, I think there's better than 9:30. 9:30, yeah, exactly.
We'll take that back down.
Absolutely. I'm handing it off now, I'm gonna be quiet.
Obviously, thank you to our team here at Littlstar. Thank you to Fuel. Thank you to Trace. Thank you, Erin, for being so great. We do want to let you know, before we kind of get this party rolling, that we are very serious about our recycling here at Littlstar. So if you see the blue bins, use them, and we'll be watching you if you don't. Yeah, so let's get this thing going. All right? If you have any questions, let's mingle, let's have a good time. We got a good playlist, so enjoy.
Actually Vermont, of all places again. Just passed a law about it like 2 months ago, and it's basically a legal entity in town.
Oh yeah, no, we help write. How's your job?
I will. Yeah.
I've got 2 offices that write half the blockchain legislation.
That's awesome. We got approached by a client 2 weeks ago asking about it.
Yeah, good job.
I will. Thank you. Go for it.
Don't mind me.
Yeah. Are you video?
Wow, you're really blurry all of a sudden. Wait, there you go.
Aaron works with us.
Much better. Hi, gentlemen. How are you? Just getting some B-roll. Don't mind me. Some B-roll. That's what we call it in the biz.
I'm a B-roll artist. That's really bad.
Wait.
Michael! Hi! Hi, Michael.